Lena, on to you.
Thank you. Yeah, warm welcome from my side as well. And it's great to see so many of you here today. Just like Ed, you said, it's all about sharing and coming together and really harvesting on this futures literacy foresight practices. And this is what the demo hour is about. So just a few words what this format is. This format was born at the beginning of this year with the aim to learn from each other. From each other's practices, because we all have different practices, to share methods, knowledges, approaches, and kind of broaden our perspective, right, about what foresight is. These are monthly sessions, excuse me. So they're happening every month for 1 hour to 1.5. It's always open, it's always free for everyone to join who is interested in foresight in general. And for every session, we have one of our members stepping up on the stage and sharing his or her knowledge with us. And today we're extremely excited to have you, Amos Taylor, with us. You were a member of both networks, and you brought these two networks together to kind of organize this session today. And we're doing it under the umbrella of the demo hours. But yeah, it's really a collaboration. So before I give the word to you, just a quick introduction who you are for the people who don't know you. You are a futurist and project researcher at the Finland Futures Research Centre, and you have developed a futures technique or method, you will tell us more about it, that you call Scalable Fruits. In general, the session and also the interactive part with you in a moment will be very much about utilizing networks and potentially having a more casual workshop format for meaningful conversations. So let's see how that is working for us. And thank you so much for your time, for stepping up today. We have roughly 30 minutes with you now, and then we will have time for discussion. So everybody keep your questions, post them in the chat if you have them, raise your hands, and then I'm sure we'll have a good time. Over to you.
Thank you, Leah. Yes, so exactly this is the idea, to a little bit be reflexive, and I'm being reflexive here and considering kind of the networks we use, the experiences of the foresight work we do, and there's kind of like niggling, maybe not so formal approaches that you think are interesting and you keep using them, but maybe they're not formalized yet, or they're not the official futures and foresight methods. So what are the futures official methods, you know? And this is one of the things with futures and foresight is, if you know the methods, then you are kind of a qualified. But this is also a question about what your aim is, you know. So I'm going to share my screen, and if you're wondering, I have my camera kind of low down because I will do some things with some fruit after a while. I share. So I have about I do a quick colorful round of, let's see, can you see my slides?
Yes.
No. Yes. Very good. Okay. So Scalable Fruit is the name of my and it's kind of stuck. It's a name that's stuck, but it kind of you'll see why. Part of my frustration in workshops and a lot of work in foresight is that you have the kind of same people turning up, and they're almost like automatic in their responses, and they kind of know, like, okay, well, it's going to be about AI, it's going to be about Internet of Things, maybe climate change, and then so there's kind of like the usual suspects, and these post-its, which, you know, we love to write on them. That's really important, like a people have to express themselves, but this is not the only way. And sometimes these are working against us. Sometimes these make a kind of you blind to the experience of workshops. Did you go to a memorable workshop, or was it the same old thing, usual? You know, the 5 people sitting at the table and then say hi and quickly go through the trends, and then those trends are kind of extracted, and the organizers say, "Thank you very much. We got what we wanted. Hopefully you had a nice time." And maybe they did, but maybe they didn't. So, but there's another part of the workshop is that it's about experience. So for a long time now, I was interested in kind of avant-garde, experimentational spaces, these kind of non-formal spaces. Sometimes it can be art gallery as a kind of a learning space, or a street corner where something is tested, and they're more about the experience. Of course, we understand about experiential futures, but when I was doing this work, maybe 15 years ago, starting, I was more interested in kind of the creative practice or creative situations, and also then the idea that, like Joseph Beuys says, everyone is an artist, and it's also been said that maybe everybody could be a futurist. Then some Joseph Beuys also thinks, or Alan Kapler also said that everybody already is an artist, and we could also think that everybody can, you know, is already using the future. So these have kind of a overlapping. John Cage was instrumental in teaching this kind of a fluxus, very conceptual works in which you kind of gave scripts or an event score. And I think this is a very important thing to consider when making creative workshops. To think about the kind of the plan and the experience and the potential that they have. And another thing to mention also is about Susan Sontag, the kind of a famous kind of essayist, and at this point she was talking about artworks, and the usual, as I understood it, the usual approach was that when we go to an art gallery and we look at painting, we're trying to think, what was the artist trying to say? And that was the kind of predominantly thing. The good bourgeoisie thing to do is to like look at the art and understand what the artist is saying. But in her approach was, what does it mean to me? And so how do we find our own interpretation, and we make our mark and experience life and art. And the idea is about this is the Fluxus movement, avant-garde movement, these movements, and they were blurring the official world of art and the unofficial world of life and blending them together. So this was my starting space. Alison Knowles, member of the Fluxus group, and she made a memorable work that I really liked. And it was just very simple. It was a performance about making a salad. So I'll go through this. And it was just people making a salad, and it changed, it's like somehow bringing up these kind of human elements. But of course, food is a wonderful element to get people to talk, to open up. And so I was asked to design kind of or join a session to make a workshop kind of for shy people. In the first time, it was with unemployed refugees in the Turku region, and then another one it was with artists and creatives, which I will show you now. And so the idea was to make an event where they would come together. They could explore together their own practice and think what they want to do in the future. So the first people were invited to this event, and people would choose a basket of fruit that they would represent them through the time, and they have to. That's going to be your your basket, and that's going to represent you for the whole evening. Next, there was tables laid out, and different questions was written onto the tables with non-permanent marker, I might say. Don't do the mistake of permanent markers. And people were just flowing in and coming and arriving, and they go around and answer these questions with the fruit. So just to place your fruit near to something that is important to you or represents to you. And so there was all kinds of different questions there. What do you dream about? Do you dream about people? Do you dream about pleasure? Do you dream about the future? Do you dream about the past? And so it's kind of an experience, and people were not sure what's happening, and the tables slowly fill up. So we slowly the kind of experience, the room kind of changed, the feeling changed. People were a little bit more testing what this is, and there was some little music in the background. Then we kind of got around all together and in a group explain why you answered like that. So, for example, so you put the tomato there, you know, apple there, you know, next to that question. Why did you put it that you want to? And so the idea was to the tables offer kind of a scale, like a Likert scale, or you know, from one extreme to another. And so very, very simply, and you make your own kind of a calibration about, you know, how close or how far. And people opened up that, well, I answered like this, that I'm usually working in this way, that I would like to work more with other people, but for example, I'm more working alone right now, but I'm not kind of brave enough. And somebody else says that, well, yeah, I'm kind of the same, but not quite there where you are yet. And so it started to open up, and everybody had their own kind of iteration. The difference is that the iteration is not for the organizer necessarily, even though I'm recanting it to you now. It's not recanting, but it's more kind of between the people, between the members who are there in the space. And in the final part, they were telememory, and I collaborated with two performance artists. And they would tell a memory about that specific fruit. Well, so why did you choose the fruit that you had, and what does it mean to you? Can you remember something about that fruit? And people were telling, for example, Ismail Falk was he started it, this kind of, and he had an elaborate story about a memory of lemons, and his grandmother who was peeling lemons. Also, then another performance artist, Tommy Lindman, he also then kind of led the way and opened up. So this was I had already like decided that they would facilitate this part of in other events. I have asked different people. So what this is about kind of often about forgotten futures that might have been. For some people, it was being a refugee and from Afghanistan, and kind of the life that they had and the skills that they had. And now in Finland, that future couldn't continue in the same way. And so what to do. So it was also quite sensitive issues sometimes, but it was somehow very much that you kind of gain a trust there. And nobody was forced to do anything, you know, and open up. There was also some interpreters there as well. In other times is also what you want to, what would you like to learn? What would you like to, what skills would you like to learn? Somebody was talking about that they would really like to, they've always wanted to knit and really like to start to learn how to knit now. And that's what they're going to plan to do next year, is going to be about knitting. And somebody else was saying, yeah, I want to do that. I join you with that. Okay, so this kind of different people from different backgrounds, maybe these were somehow similar in other events, they're quite different, but find some kind of commonality. It's not explicitly futures oriented, but it fits very well for this kind of a more sensitive approach to futures. And so the idea is also then to play with different scales and spaces and surfaces and objects in those spaces, and that we can kind of make things a bit more seamless. But then we have scales all the time. If you think about climate change and scenarios, they can be also interacted with in different ways. So this is also something that's very easy. It might be easy for somebody to kind of place something along a scale. I did the same event with futurists as well, and in the end the tables come together, and the fruit is eaten. Maybe a glass of wine can be added. Networking, practice and collaboration is discussed, and the idea is kind of a seamless event, and people are not necessarily understanding where it's going, but they somehow like the experience, and it seems to go. So in this way, you can also think, how do you work differently in regions, and how do you utilize the future differently? I think these are the more current things. And so this is my pet project. Let me just stop sharing. And then I can move this a little bit. Yeah, maybe I zoom out a little bit. Are you still with me? Okay. This is a little bit harder to do online, but you can get the idea that there's different ways in which we can iterate, and we can also place, and we can play with objects, and we can think about how things work. We did one version of this in a kind of little island from our department, and so I asked futurists, about so when you're dreaming, where are you? Are you in the past? Are you in the present? Or are you in the future? Or something else? And some were really bravely saying I'm definitely really, really far, 1,000 years into the future. It's always like a 1,000 years in the future. Or I'm kind of stuck a little bit in my childhood, maybe, and then we played so we played a little bit on these kind of benches and placed things here and there, and we made our own scales about how to engage those, and it's quite a nice way to open up and to get things started, and also to try to think differently. And of course, it's okay if it's just for fun. Some of these methods are fun, and I'm not actually saying that formal foresight methods can't be fun as well. But sometimes they are really painful. A Delphi study can be really hard to go through. It's really hard to make, and maybe hard to answer. So maybe sometimes this kind of way of iterating and discussing and finding commonalities, or especially, we could think about there's been debate in our field about futures cone, and plausibility, for example, so how do you, the future should be like the preferred future should be made, and everybody should kind of go onto there, and we kind of focus on that. Or then we should be looking at all the alternatives, always just alternatives futures. Or then we shouldn't do alternative futures because that gives us only a few choices. So what's more than, so all of this is something. You understand my playful game here, but it's also to break this kind of automated approach that participants might have. And the idea then is to find to acknowledge those networks and those people in those events. That's why you come to them. It's kind of maybe an unsaid aspect of foresight work. So I'm kind of curious what methods you might have pet projects that you have been developing. This has been with me for over 10 years, and I've been playing with it in different ways. It's slightly difficult to do it online, as you might imagine, but but I can think that digital tools could help with this, but also something very, very basic that you can do with just some fruit.